The Racing Pod
on Off the Ball
with William Hill. Who you got? 18 plus. See gamblingcare.ie.
And you're welcome to episode 90 of the Racing Pod and Off the Ball with John Duggan and Johnny Ward. Remember, we're here every week with analysis, race previews, tips, stories, interviews, bit of crack as well. A reminder, folks, as well, the full Off the Ball Racing Pod is now free wherever you get your pods. Johnny, how's the form?
Very well, JD.
You're in Killarney, Johnny. You're in the kingdom.
Down for the 3-day meeting, and it did feel like the kingdom. It felt like heaven on earth last night on Thursday with the weather that we have. A good crowd, really good crowd. About 5 or 6 of the Kerry footballers. No David Clifford. Big rumour he was going to come, but his brother Paddy and other members were there. Gavin White, the captain, and some of the players from the team were there. Good effort by Killarney to get a crowd into the races, and it's mad being down here, JD. Like, the Killarney is so popular with American tourists. Like, there are actually American tourists down here whose visit was centred on the college football in Dublin, but they work Killarney into their visit, and they'll make their way up to Dublin then for the American football. So that's how touristy it is down here. But lots of them at the races last night. Just a lovely atmosphere. It was like a fairly ordinary jumps card. But obviously the people wanted to come and see the footballers, and it's a magic place down here.
Did they bring the Sam Maguire Cup with them?
They did, yeah, plenty of photos, and I can definitely see. I don't know why David Clifford didn't come, and he wasn't obliged to come. I know they were making efforts for him to come, but I can imagine that he might have just wanted a little bit of peace, because Gavin White is he's a very well-built man, and you can see the guns are definitely in good shape. But I'd say the one of the hardest workouts he's ever had was holding on to that trophy for as long as he did for photos yesterday. It was just selfies, photos, and it was just I had a chat with Paddy and Gavin for Racing TV, and they did make the point, like, you can't take these things for granted. It's not like Kerry win All-Ireland every year, for all that it is the home of football and all of that. And everyone really embraced the Sam Maguire coming to Killarney yesterday, and it's such a magnificent backdrop. It really is an amazing place for a racetrack to have, and one of the jewels in Ireland. Tonight, I'm here tonight as well for a very good flat card, actually. But Ireland being Ireland, they'll more likely come for the jump sources.
Did you get your hands on the silver?
No, I think I did in 1998. I presume it's much the same. So I didn't get my hands on it, but I certainly admired the lads from afar, and thought it was good of them to come in, because like, it must be hard, JD, being, especially David Clifford. Like, you're an amateur sports person, but like, you kind of, because like if David Clifford is like he's the biggest superstar ever in Gaelic football in some respects. He's blessed to have the talent he has, but he doesn't have a normal life either. And I think the Kerry people were telling me that, down here, the older people, being Kerry older people, they'd say hello, but they kind of leave them to their own devices. But the kids and young people, they just want to talk to them, be around them, and it's a great thing. But obviously, I suppose you cede some of your privacy as well, particularly after winning All Ireland. Killarney
must be your favourite racetrack, is it?
I was actually asked this last night, what my favourite racetrack is. Like, globally, I'd probably say Saratoga is my favourite racetrack. I've gone to, if not York, after visiting it recently. I loved York. In Ireland, I'd say probably Killarney. Like, I was lucky enough with Dan McDonnell to own a leg of a horse whose 10-year anniversary of his victory down here. I Skipper was actually the other day, and it's funny, when I was writing for the Sunday Independent kind of early in my journalism career, I actually wrote a piece for this meeting for the Sunday Independent, and I found it recently, and I was just marvelling at the backdrop. And Michael Bell had a runner for the Queen that day, and I remember thinking, that day, this is just, we're really blessed to have this place. And I suppose we've been coming back a long time. I love Kerry in general, absolutely love the place from top to bottom, out to the Blasket Islands and Charlie Haughey's Island and all of those places. It's magic. And Killarney is it has everything really. It's and the thing about Kerry as well, as much as it's very touristy, it's still friendly. It's still a place where, even the restaurant last night, and you have a lot of American tourists, and I was with some of my cousins from America. The staff are very, very friendly, and they welcome people here, and it's just a magic place. One of my favourite places on the earth.
On YouTube, there's a a video or a documentary, Hockey's Ireland. We should do a Johnny's Ireland documentary and put it on YouTube.
I've seen the Hockey's Island documentary. Yeah, it's probably a bit ahead of its time, but
or behind its time.
Yeah, behind its time.
York, you mentioned there, we've had the really impressive Ebor meeting this week. So let's recap on a bit of that, Johnny. So success for Ombudsman and Pride of Arras and Mini Hawk, probably the three big winners. So Ombudsman reversed the placings with Delacroix from Ascot in a bizarre race where the horse you were talking about last week, Burr Castle, nearly stole it.
It was quite extraordinary, and it's probably prompted more, conversations and debates about the place of pacemakers such as Curragh, who obviously runs on Friday today in the big one, and his 150-1 triumph the last day has prompted conversation about this, and Burcastle was sent off 150-1. We even had a horse at the Curragh who was essentially a pacemaker. I think last weekend finished second at 300-1. So in the old days, these horses would be sent off 50s or 66s. I think you'd have the odd example of, I think Sholokov finished place in Harry Chaparral's Derby at a massive price. But generally now, because of the way that the betting exchanges have sort of dictated what the off-course SPs are, you get these even bigger prices for pacemakers. And it was intriguing watching Burcastle. I don't know what you made of it, JD, but like this Burcastle, he's not a horse I'm overly familiar with, but when I looked at his form last week, he's not a bad horse at all. And he was rated 109 going into the race. So as much as he'd a lot to find with Ombudsman, he was capable of running a good race, and then he was sort of let off. And then in races like that, where like Burcastle, according to the Racing Post comments and running, at one point was 20 lengths clear. At this point in a race, it becomes a kind of a weird contest that the pacemaker is sort of ignored, but at the same time, the other jockeys are sort of looking around and fearful probably of him getting away, and then they have their own private battle. And ultimately, Burcastle beat See the Fire, Dan and the Seal, and Dariaz, horses who were 7-1, 7-2, and 14-1, who had legitimate claims in the race. Dariaz came in as an unbeaten 3-year-old, was very interested in it. And Delacroix beat him by half a length. That's what really surprised me. Like Delacroix, as much as it always looked like Ryan Moore was confident he would get there, he then probably saw Ombudsman go, and he's, I'm not going to beat him. But he was fairly, he beat him by half a length. So it was an extraordinary race. I don't really know what to take from it in terms of the relevance of pacemakers, because if pacemakers are no-hopers in a race, they don't really have any purpose, because why would you go after them when they can't win? And a pacemaker like this, who has a chance, should not be able to finish third after going 20 lengths.
I love it. I love the fact that they can win, and I love the fact that then they kind of generate a panic in the jockeys potentially for the we're in trouble here now. So the other thing, really, like you'll say, they couple these horses in the States for good reason with the same owner, and Burcastle was supplemented entirely, like Curragh was supplemented for Fields of Gold. Burcastle was supplemented for Ombudsman, so theoretically he's forfeiting his own chance in the race. But what actually has happened here is that they've massively improved their chance in the race by being pacemakers. Yeah, no, I like it. I like the idea that a pacemaker. I like the Curragh winning thing is a great story. It just meant that William Buick had to have a cool head, and he did, to win on Ombudsman. Pride of Arras then, I mean, Lambourne was disappointing and looked kind of beat quite a way out in that race. Pride of Arras, a York specialist, won the Dante, and maybe Lambourne's Derby will not be seen as a vintage one. I feel we sort of summed that up maybe at the time. Either of the derbies, there's something about them for me that didn't set my pulses racing. And you look at like some of Aidan O'Brien's kind of 2-year-olds at the moment, and these aren't particularly Derby horses that have come to mind. They're really fast horses, and his Derby team this year, I mean, Delacroix was more fancied at Epsom. He didn't stay, and he's probably no superstar himself. And Lambourne, as much as it's been a great year for Australia, like I wasn't wowed by the form of his Derby wins. That's not to say I laid him at York either. I mean, he looked to have a good chance. Aidan O'Brien said it was a mess of a race. I mean, ultimately for me, he was just very, very, very flat and disappointed. Maybe he had a bit of an off day. Maybe the race wasn't run to suit. Maybe the pace wasn't strong enough for him, and he's kind of a staying type. But he looked fairly limited to me. He was one of the first beaten, plugged on for pressure, beaten 3 lengths, but stayed true. I felt emerged with a lot of credit. I know he only ended up finishing 4th, but given his inexperience, travelled really nicely in the race. Like, he looked like a horse that could go places, and
Karmers has been an incredible story this season. He was 10-1 and beating a hurdler first time out at Ballinrobe. It's amazing how underestimated he was then, considering what he was capable of since, and he's improved massively. But it was a good effort from Pride of Arse, all told. But I just felt Lambourne, I speculated earlier in the season, like what sort of stallion fee would Lambourne command, and I didn't think it'd be much more than 10 or 15 grand, and it'd be less now.
Minnie Hawk, though, on the other hand, has won the Epsom and Irish Oaks, and then won the Yorkshire Oaks the other day. She could be going to maybe the Arc of the Breeders' Cup with Whirl also in the mix there. It seems like Aidan's got some good 3-year-old fillies.
Definitely, yeah. He sounds like he's kind of going to keep them apart, which is fair enough. Like, I've been certainly banging this proverbial drum for the Arc for Minnie Hawk for some time, and Aidan hasn't won the Arc with the 3-year-old filly, but 3-year-old fillies have lots going for them in the Arc in terms of the weight allowance, and for late in the season you get plenty of weight when the difference between 3-year-old and a 4-year-old is obviously less than it was earlier in the season. This was one of these cases, I suppose, in hindsight, where 8-15 looked an All-Ireland price, because she's so much better. She's so much better than everything she was running against. Estrange was obviously back to beat her, and sort of seemed to go through with her effort relatively well, and had only £3 to find with her in theory. But Minnie Hawk's a horse I have to say I really, really like, because she's hard to get to the bottom of. She only beat Whirl by neck at Epsom, but even at the Curragh then, when she won what looked a grossly inferior race, she seemed to be kind of in trouble coming into the straight. But Ryan Moore spoke afterwards about the Breeders' Cup, and I think both of us, JD, were big Breeders' Cup fans. I'd love to see her over there and carry this massive expectation as an Irish hope, because she's almost bulletproof. And what was most encouraging for me here was the way she travelled in the race on good firm ground, proper good firm ground. She's won on soft ground now, and she's won on good firm ground, and maybe that was a small concern beforehand. And Aidan hadn't had a great York going into Minnie Hawk's race. Maybe the punters were a little bit wary, and the layers were happy to take her on. But Aidan I think he said she's a bit of an edge to her. I just love the way she races, and we're kind of privileged to see sons of daughters of Frankel, and to be around in this time to see the greatest racehorse perhaps ever in these shores, to see his offspring come along. And I don't know where the bottom of her is, but she's still sort of, I think, looking at last night, she was still 10-1 for the Arc, which for me is definitely a bet.
Del Mar is where the Breeders' Cup is this year, folks. If you want to go, I'd highly recommend it. Highly recommend it. Keeneland next year, Belmont Park in 2027. So yeah, you know what to do, folks. You got a bit of spare cash. Some of the best racing you'll ever see. You haven't been yet, Johnny, have you?
No, Del Mar would probably be the best option. Like, I've been to Belmont, and I haven't been to Keeneland, but Del Mar, where the sun meets the sand, is that what they say? I think that'd be a lot of fun. Although the fact I haven't had a pint this year might slightly put me off. It's probably a bit of a boozy event, like Kentucky Derby's.
Oh man, the Keeneland breezes, man, the Keeneland breezes, the best things I've ever drunk. Sent me to Cape Canaveral, sent me to the moon.
Yeah, I even if I don't make it, I have to say I love, like, Friday, Saturday nights, even if it's in your local bar or at home, watching the Breeders' Cup and all that American style build up to the races, and the fact that it's much more difficult for horses over there to take on the home horses, the way that they break, and obviously you bring in the dirt angle as well, but it's totally different. The jockeys ride differently, real turning, difficult tracks, and that's what makes it so much more exciting, I suppose.
The Ebor Handicap then is probably the best race of the weekend. 3:35 York on Saturday. I went through all 22 runners this morning, Johnny. First of all, it's 1 mile 6, right? So it's a stay-in race. Does the draw matter for you?
Yeah, it does matter. It does matter if I suppose certain horses in the race, it's not a big problem. But even over 1 mile and 6, and in fairness, York isn't. It's not Chester now. It's not a track where you've almost no chance if you're drawn high, even over this trip, because you're just, it's kind of like just a logical thing. There are only so many horses that can hug the rail, and if you're turning all the time, you're going to be massively cut out of your ground. And the jockeys in these races are of such quality. Like, if it gets tactical and you're a hold-up horse, you can be very, very, very unlucky. And looking at Alphonse de Grandeur on the week, Tony Martin's horse, was kind of like, if you're a prisoner to being held up in these races, you were even in races like this, it can be difficult. But generally, you can kind of get away with it in the Ebor. It's not a race where the draw would be as important as others, but I still wouldn't want to be the likes of French Master drawn 22. And if you were on the Hip Hop de la War, not even gamble, but if you were on him anti-post, you'd be perfectly happy in 9. And I think, Ebor itself is, I think the name of the race is based on the old Roman name for York. It has so much history. You're just looking at the last few winners, JD. Trawlerman won it off from 20, Absurd won it from 24, and Muntaha won it from 21, Nakita won it from 18, and these are all sort of in the last 8 years, so they were all highish draws. Obviously Trawlerman was a bit of a blot that day, but you can certainly win from a high draw. It's a fascinating race. What do you like?
I like Siege of Troy, Johnny Murta. He's got a £7 claimer on him, which is interesting. So look, obviously it'll be a big test for Patrick McGettigan, but looking at the horse's form here, first of all, he's owned by Qatar Racing, so they must think a bit of him to buy him. Fourth behind Ethical Diamond at Ascot, then third in the Group 3 at Leopardstown, both over 12 furlongs. Over this trip, I think he's definitely got a chance with the claimer on, who's had 19 wins in Ireland, Patrick McGettigan for Johnny Murta, and a bit of money from him as well, Siege of Troy.
Yeah, as I say, I'm at Killarney. He has a couple of rides tonight, Patrick, in the first and the 740. There's a fair chance we get to talk to him about Siege of Troy, and this is a huge opportunity. You see, riders, young riders coming into races like this and having an opportunity to really showcase themselves to a decent British audience. It's a big thing, and we saw young riders coming over to some of the big handicaps last year. Tony Martin's horse, whose name escapes me, who got the race on appeal, was ridden by an Irish apprentice coming through, and an Irish apprentice coming through don't normally get a chance as a £7 claimer to ride in the Ebor, but I suppose that's the faith that Johnny Murta has in Patrick McGettigan, and maybe partly as well, it's just the fact that he's claiming £7. £7 is enormous in a race like this. Horses are handicapped to the hilt by and large. And even if you're looking at, say there's a strong case to be made for Hip Hop De La War, but Hip Hop De La War was fifth in the race last year off 103. He's now £3 higher and he's favourite. So that just shows how horses have really little in hand, and he has to defy quite a bit to win. For all that you can see the case made for him.
Siege of Troy, you can get 16 to 1 each way, folks, for maybe for €1 each way. What is your main pick for the Ebor, Johnny?
Yeah, I think on last week's show I might have spoken about him, but London City is interesting for me. Now, this is a small stake bet because you're looking at Sean Levy riding him rather than Ryan Moore, and that is a negative because they kind of finished up sides each other at the Curragh last time. Ultimately, London City finished ahead of Queenstown, and you can run in group races and it's not your target. Hip Hop De La War, I tipped him at Roscommon earlier in the season with Colin Keane riding him, and in hindsight, that wasn't his big plan at all this year. He was sent off 10 to 1 and finished fourth, and now he's favoured for the Ebor. I think they've absolutely campaigned him for this race, and I thought looking at the last year that London City and Queenstown, it sort of looked like they might be prepped for this. But it'd be worth if you haven't watched the race back, JD, it'd be worth watching London City's last and only visit to York when he beat Align the Stars in May of last year. Align the Stars was very well handicapped on the day, but the London City, at one point, a furlong and a half down or so, there were 3 or 4 horses sort of up in the van. He was probably travelling worst of all. He ended up going on and winning by length. He just stayed. That was a mile and a half, and that really screamed that this was the sort of race that he should go for, albeit this is a harder race and he is stepping up in trip, and ultimately it is a worry that Ryan Moore doesn't ride, but I like his profile otherwise, around 12 to 1.
Yeah, that's for the Ebor. Johnny's pick is correct, 12 to 1. London City, number 7 in the Ebor handicap at York, 3.35 on Saturday. In terms of outsiders in the race, was there anything that caught your eye at a bigger price, Johnny?
At a bigger price, maybe Yashin. He's a horse that was with Jessica Harrington. He hasn't really fired in this race before. He was 7th in the race last year from Jessica Harrington. He's a fine big horse by Churchill. He beat Coltrane at Ascot in April, and he's off 105. He's fairly interesting. It's obviously a step down after running in Group 2s the last day. Archie Young claiming 5. I think I mentioned Michael Bell earlier in the show. He was one of the guys I interviewed. He'd a runner for the Queen in the was it the Ruby Stakes or the Vincent O'Brien Ruby Stakes. This was probably my first trip to Killarney all those years ago, so maybe it'll be topical to note that he'll win this, Michael Bell with Yashin. He's definitely an interesting runner. Willie has Ethical Diamond in the race, who's second favourite. A horse I definitely find hard to get right, and as much as I've knocked the favourite, JD, like if you wanted to back Hip Hop De La War, say if William Hill is a top price 7 to 2, 5 places, Could be 4-1 tomorrow. Who knows? If Hip Hop Dillawar gets looking running, he really should be in the first 5 on last year's run. It's kind of as simple as that. And you're a small loss at worst in the race if you back me, Trey.
There's money for Shadow Dance, number 13. Sylvester de Souza riding this horse, top of the Racing Post ratings, lightly raced course winner from last season. Easing the ground would help him. It appears, though, this has definitely been the aim. Shadow Dance, trained by Roger Varian. Like at 40-1, I didn't think Fleetfoot was a complete rag or a no-hoper. Jim Bulger trains has won a couple of 12 furlong handicaps at the Curragh and Gowran Park this summer. Just struck me as one of the better outsiders.
It'd be fascinating if Jim were to win this. You know, Jim is getting on in years now, and it's been a strange kind of later part of the career of a guy that I think would universally have been considered something of a legend in Irish racing, but the allegations in relation to all the sort of Lance Armstrong stuff has rendered him something of a pariah within his own sport, I have to say. And it would be quite the story were he to win this, because he has very few runners in Britain now, let alone in handicaps. And I'm sure he's had few runners in this race. And even if you look at his stats in recent years, JD, Irish flat this season, he's on a 6% strike rate, but he's had plenty of place starts, but his stats have gone down a good bit in recent seasons. He's kind of looking for that good horse. It'd be a hell of a story. Ross Coakley's having his first season kind of riding his horses. This horse won at Gowran. He was well fancied the last day, and he's not without a chance at a big price. He really isn't. It's surprising how big he is, and maybe that's a reflection of the Jim's horse is not moving the market like before, but be quite the story. I don't know if Jim will be in York tomorrow, but quite the story with that horse to win.
French Master is a quirky but decent 4-year-old. The Goslins are behind this one. Like he won at Ascot over the distance earlier this summer, not without a chance as well.
Not without a chance, yeah. And he's one of the improvers in the race. As I mentioned at the top of the show, you really don't want to be drawn 22. He has a visor on for the first time, and John Tazy Goslin have probably targeted this race since Goodwood, and it wasn't a bad run at all behind Scandinavia, who of course beat Illinois that day, and Sweet William, the stayers of our time, I suppose, apart from Kyprios now, who is gone, and so he is the class act in the race. That's always tricky.
What about this City of York Stakes Group 1 race at York on Saturday, 3 o'clock, 11 runners? I mean, Rosalian won the Irish Guineas last year. A distance shouldn't be an issue back at 7. Tactics will be important. Has hit the crossbar a couple of times now after a fine 3-year-old season in Group 1 races this year.
Yeah, Tom Malone and I think even Sam Norris, we spoke about this, Rosalian defeat to Curragh at Goodwood. I mean, if you back the horse that day, it's one of the most hardest things as a punter to take when if you could make a case, he's 11-2, there's no way he should be that price relative to 1-3 Field of Gold, and then he's beaten a neck by the Pacemaker. I mean, it's hard to take that, and especially if you backed him to beat Docklands or Royal Ascot. For all, I think that day was kind of just one of those things on the nod. Dropping back to 7 is a slight concern. I think it's just a slight concern. He's an out and out miler, but I tend to prefer horses dropping back in trip than forward in trip, and the way he's ridden, it shouldn't be a major problem for him. I quite like his chance, JD. I just think he's really, really the class act in the race. He has to reverse form with Curragh. Never So Brave is the up-and-comer, who's a really interesting 4-year-old in the race, has progressed markedly. But Rosalian, as milers go of our generation, he's well up there. He's very, very reliable, loads of class. He's by a fast influence stallion, and I don't see 7 furlongs being a major problem. I feel he should have a massive chance.
He's on the drift as well. 6-4 could be a value price by the time of the off.
Yeah, and even a bit of 13-8 about with another bookmaker, so that would suggest slightly bigger. I feel for a lot of punters, JD, on it's 3 o'clock on a Saturday, the football is starting. This is one of the races that could kind of almost make or break your outlook on the day, or if you have them in the queues and so forth. But I don't see any reason to oppose him.
Exactly. Ryan Ward and Aidan O'Brien is interesting for me. 18-1. A distance winner, has been fading over a mile. Maybe 7 furlongs could suit. Might be an each way squeak for Exactly. That's the only other one. I think Rosalian's probably win it, but I think Exactly was the other one that I spotted. Yeah,
she obviously, by virtue of her running the race for Aidan, she's interesting. We saw son of Frankel, Diego Velasquez, sold to go to stud. Really interesting developments actually the other day. And Diego Velasquez is a Frankel who was good enough to show smart form over 7 furlongs this season later in his life. But generally, obviously, Frankel horses, as much as he was fast, they stay well. So 7 furlongs would be a bit of a question mark. But Jesus, she's miles off beating Rosalian on the likes of her long shot run. Even, I mean, at Ascot behind Sir Sene, she was beaten 5.5 lengths. She shouldn't be anywhere near good enough to win this, so I guess she probably wins.
The Curragh on Saturday, Johnny, we've got a couple of 2-year-old races, the Futurity Stakes and the Debutante Stakes. So the Futurity Stakes is at 327, 5 runners. When I was looking at the Hill odds, Constitution River was odds on, but I thought there was a couple of horses here that have definite claims. Jarion for Jar Lyons won at 18 to 1 on debut over course and distance and has to hold strong claims. And also a boy named Susie, an impressive winner at Killarney over a mile on soft. This is now 7 furlongs. A trained by Donnacha O'Brien, owned by Anna O'Brien, and has worked well at the Curragh before. I think it's not a penalty kick for the favourite here.
I tend to agree. A boy named Susie, who's obviously one of those, it's like What's Up Darling winning last night, was a gelding. Sometimes these names just imply a sex that isn't actually the sex of the horse. And a boy named Susie is a bit of a tricky one, but it is a boy who's named Susie. He's by Star Spangled Banner out of Soho, Susie. And Soho would have been a good place to have a bet and a point back in the day, JD, as you would have read. And Bella Mana, who's second at Killarney, runs tonight. See, can that form be given a bit of a boost? But there was a lot of chat around this horse, Killarney, and he did the job well. Constitution River was sent off 1 to 5 at Galway, when that would imply that he's obviously considered in very high regard. This is another of these kind of good race that's Curragh that hasn't produced a particularly big field, but I don't think it takes much away from the race. The horse that interests me at the prices, 22 to 1, JD, not the outsider, but the second outsider in the race. Go Just Do It for Joseph O'Brien, whose dad Aidan has the favourite and brother Donnacha has a boy named Susie. This horse kicked off in a Curragh maiden that was very, very hot, won by New Zealand. From the very eye-catching subsequent winner Isaac Newton. Action won since, and even also ran Shahan and Giovanni Giorgio, who were 7th and 8th, ran big races from well back since. It just gave the impression of one of these really, really hot Curragh maidens on a big weekend. And Go Just Do It, who was nibbled at in the market, was an expensive yearling. He finished 4th, travelled well in the race, but should definitely improve. And I do feel Joseph O'Brien run them here, feels that he can go well. So 22s each way, you're getting 22 to 4. 11 to 2 on the place part of the bet. He'll definitely do for me at the prices.
Okay, well, the Debutante Stakes is at 4:02 p.m. So composing for Aidan O'Brien behind Ballantina, but I then stepped up forward. She did with a course and distance victory and a Group 3 success at Leopardstown. And then Susie Songs for Jar Lyons, 2 from 2, an Anglesey Stakes winner over 6.5. This trip should suit her. Rock solid claims. Is it between the two of them for you?
Not necessarily. I wouldn't be ruling out Evolutionist, the filly by Night of Thunder for Carl Burke. She only ran just over 2 weeks ago. She started off at Haydock when she was favourite, and at Newmarket last time she still looked a little bit green under pressure, but she stretched on well. I'd be slightly concerned about her dropping back a furlong looking at that, but she was well back that day. Beautiful pedigree by Night of Thunder. Carl Burke, I'd massively respect coming over here, so I wouldn't be ruling her out. Now on the figures, she's a bit defined. Brownstown can't win based on that run the last day behind Composing, and at Leopardstown that day, I have a great habit of tipping horses the day before they win, JD. So I tip Skydance at Leopardstown, and so obviously the theory is she'll probably win today, or she'll win at the Curragh, but all messing aside, I can't see how she reversed that form. Composing really was all over her in the closing stage. She looked really, really strong. She's an interesting pedigree. Wouldn't bast it out of it. Pona Plays, who's a smart horse by Australia for Willie McCreary, I think. And she looks a powerful, powerful horse. I've been taken by Wouldn't Bast It, his progeny this season, and I'm kind of reluctant to oppose her. But if I were to oppose her, JD, she is 6 to 5. William Hill, the only bookmaker to price it. If you're having your 50 quid on her, you could have, say, a fiver on Evolutionist to cover yourself, or even less, but just have a little saver on Evolutionist. She's not bad either.
Okay, you're in Killarney. I'm just looking at a couple of the races tomorrow on Saturday. There's a handicap hurdle at 3:05 at 2 miles 6 furlongs. I was kind of going off the top 3 horses on the Racing Post ratings, which were Sequoia Spirit, if I can pronounce that correctly, My Gaffer and Ballycashin, but surely with Paul Tennant riding for Willie Mullins, a horse called Persian Daughter, a very lightly raced type that won over the distance last time, now into handicap. That's probably the one to beat, is it?
Yeah, she might be favourite. She's given a rating of 115 for a Willie Mullins 13 lengths maiden hurdle winner. Theoretically, isn't bad, but that was, I mean, she beat two horses at Downpatrick. I was at Bellewstown when she was second to Avondale, who I think runs at Bellewstown at Kilbeggan tonight. And she was beaten 7 lengths from the front that day, which kind of looked a bit limited. I'm a bit disappointed in Avondale at Galway. He didn't really kick on from that. So I'd have some reservations about her. The other little problem I would have is that my gaffer's in the race. I got to give a mention to Walter O'Connor, his owner. He's just been such a nice guy. He's kind of... Anytime you're racing with him, he'll try to do you a favour. Like, he's a big Man City fan. He'll try to get you a ticket for a Man City game. And Walter has sorted my brother and I tickets for Man City Liverpool this year, just on the basis of giving him a little interview for him and his brother when my gaffer won it at Kilbeggan 2 weeks ago. But that wasn't as good as the prize that Danny Mullins, the rider, got. Walter treated Danny to a night in his box in Croke Park at Oasis, which I think he enjoyed. So he's a very generous guy. He wears his heart in his sleeve, and he certainly wore his heart in his sleeve after my gaffer won at Kilbeggan. Very game performance. The race kind of fell apart a bit in behind, but he's a good game horse and likes Killarney as well. So he'll be sort of a pace pressure up front. That might suit Say It So, JD, who's my selection for Callum Hogan. He steps up to this trip after winning at Killarney over 2 miles, won last time behind beat Shabuzi. That form has been boosted since, and on his flat form he should improve over this distance, which makes him really interesting. Eric Mack had a treble on Thursday night, a 2-year-old winner at Leopardstown, followed by 2 winners at Killarney.
Likes Kerry, doesn't he? Likes a stole as well, that meeting next month. He always does well in the Kerry National, Eric McNamara. Yeah,
I hope he doesn't mind me saying, I asked him after the first of his winners at Killarney, so that was the double. Are you staying down? No. And then after the treble, are you staying down? No, I'm going home. And then my American cousin and I were walking down that road many of you will know from the racetrack into the town. And Eric McNamara gave us a lift in, and he parked the car up in Killarney, and rumour has it he did actually stay in Killarney tonight. But it's not every day you have a 2-year-old winner at Leopardstown, and he loves, keep an eye out for his horses big time at Listowel, JD, as you say.
Just the novice chase at 10 to 5 on Saturday as well. I mean, Mars Harper's in there, Dutch Schultz, Mr. Saxo Beach, a lot of exposed horses here. There's a couple of horses that won last time out, coming up easy quite a while ago for Henry de Bromhead and Drill, but I found it hard to work out this puzzle.
Oh, I'm with you on that, JD. Like, I maybe I'm a bit kind of downbeat on these big handicap chases, but they're not great betting heats for me. They're just too difficult. Horses are over the top, only, sort of exposed in terms of the handicapper's view of them. You need a lot of luck as well. You can be ridden sort of out the back in race like this. Like, you can back a horse who makes a mistake at the first in a handicap like this. You have no chance. And that's kind of a dispiriting way. It's a dispiriting bet to have. So these races, I'm not mad in them as kind of races to get involved in. Mousy Brown, a couple of mares in the race I thought were interesting. Mousy Brown ran very well behind winning Smut at Galway. Alex Harvey has 4 winners on the bounce gone into his last ride last night at Killarney, which was second. He's 4 winners a second from his last 5 rides. Still claims 5. Takes over from Darren McGill, who rode this horse at Galway, and our third over hurdles that you talked to her, showed that she stays well, and she has a low weight. She's relatively interesting. Not a race I'd be getting involved in, to be honest.
So we have the Ebor then on Saturday at 3:35. The odds at the moment with William Hill, High Pop de la Loire 7-2 favourite, Ethical Diamond 9-2, Shadow Dance 15-2, London City 11-1, Ascending 12s, French Master 14s, a drifter with Queenstown, Ryan Moore's rider 14-1 shot. Actually, money for Majestic Warrior into 12s and Siege of Troy into 10s. We got Sam Norris from William Hill on the line. Afternoon, Sam.
Hello, chaps. Very sorry to keep you waiting. By the way, busy week, but I missed my slot by 5 minutes.
It's okay, Sam. It's all right.
Strike
we can let no problem at all. What about the Ebor then, Sam? What's getting the money for you guys? I see a lot of horses being backed, but what's the best being backed horse in the race?
Yeah, I mean, Willie Mullins got a real stranglehold on the market. Has done pretty much since we opened up. Hip Hop de Loire has been more the choice of punters over Ethical Diamond, but less so the case in the last sort of 24 hours or so. We've eased Hip Hop de Loire out to 7-2, Ethical Diamond 5-1 into 9-2. Obviously, same colours carried by Absurd, who won the race a couple of years ago. Shadow of Dance has been very popular. Looked really unlucky at Goodwood last time around. Is a York winner in the past, so that one looks sure to go well. And the other one that we've laid kind of this morning is Almosha at 14 to 1. This was 18s. Has it to do with Ethical Diamond on their meeting at Ascot, but coming back to York might just give him a chance. He won the Jorvik Handicap here at the Dante meeting. So, we've seen York form come to the fore time and time again. So Almosha, the kind of popular one, along with Shadow Dance in the last sort of 24 hours or so. But yeah, great race. Obviously, different type of horse wins it these days. 5 places each way here at William Hill. Layers feel like they've got a chance in the race. Backers probably feel like they've got a good chance as well. So it's one of those handicaps.
What do you fancy in it yourself, Sam?
I'm going to go bigger price. One for the gutter, 22 to 1. Ran a storm in this race last year when finishing third. It's £6 higher this time around, but I think that's fine. I think he's at least a £6 better horse this year. He comes into it in better form than he did last year. He won a race at Newmarket over a mile 6 last time around. Really nice. A little bit of cash for him as well, which is always encouraging. 25s into 22. So, yeah, I thought one for the gutter will run well. I'm disheartened to see the money for Mr. Percy, who are backed in the Galway hurdles and leaving him alone today. So if he goes and wins this, I'll be a little bit sick. But he's 18s from 25s as well. The other I should mention was Joseph O'Brien.
What price do you think Rosalian will go off in this City of York Stakes tomorrow, Sam?
This is fascinating, isn't it, with Rosalian? Because obviously the class act in the race, no question about it. I mean, if Rosalian wasn't running in it, it probably wouldn't look like a Group 1. It's been elevated to Group 1 status this year. He's the best horse in the race, but he's weak 5 to 4 out to 6 to 4. We're happy to continue to lay out a fair share of him for now, actually. The aborted run in France last week is obviously far from ideal preparation. So, yeah, happy to get him in the book for now at 6 to 4 for all he's the class act in the race. Others that were interesting, I think Lake Forest has the potential to run, a really good race here. We ran a blinder in the Lennox last time around at Goodwood. He was widest drawn of all. The first and the third that day were drawn low. He split them. Everything else that kind of finished up there got first run on him. It was just a really good performance from Lake Forest. So I think he's going to go really well at 9 to 1. He's in the Tony Bloom colours, and I think Patrick Veitch is part of the ownership group as well. So there are a couple of men that you like to have on side. And at a big price in that race, should mention 10 Bob Tony as well. 40s into 25s. Ed Walker having a good week. He won the Lauder yesterday. This horse won a Group 3 last time around. It's a step up, but he beat horses like Kinross, Audience, Quinault on that occasion, which probably suggests he is worth his place at the top table over 7 furlongs. So I think 10 Bob Tony probably was too big of a price at 40s. Interested to see if the momentum behind him continues into tomorrow.
So Johnny's got a couple of outsiders that he likes in the Curragh tomorrow. So in the Futurity Stakes, he likes Go Just Do It at 22 to 1. And he also likes as well Evolutionist at 22 to 1 in the Debutante Stakes. Are these markets, when do they mature, as it were? Or like for Irish racing, do you see as much movement as you would say see at the Ebor or the other big races at York? Or is it very much a case of the Irish races pretty much stay as they are once you've advertised the prices?
Yeah, it's been quiet this week in particular. If we didn't have such a strong midweek meeting as we do this week at York, you'd probably see punters taking a bit more of an interest kind of Friday afternoon, particularly on weekends where the Irish action is standout. But having York this week has meant that these markets have been really quiet. No moves actually in either of the races since we stuck them up. So, we'd expect punters to kind of get involved, start looking at these races tomorrow morning, really. But I'm pleased that Johnny's got a couple of alternatives because, two really short price favourites. Like the Colts version in particular, I thought looked a thin race really with Constitution River coming out of that really good Newmarket maiden that Distance Storm won. He let the form down a little bit this week in the Acon, but I think 7 individual winners have come out of that Newmarket race. So yeah, we could do with some alternatives in these two because the front pair in the market look quite solid for Aidan O'Brien.
Johnny, you got a charity bet this week for €50 or 25 each way. What are you going to do?
Yeah, I'll just give a mention to Spring Dance at Curragh. I do like running for Jessica Harrington, the 4:37, but I'm a big believer, JD. As a tipster, tipping without prices it's kind of like saying, I like a pint of Guinness, but I'm not necessarily going to pay €12 for it. And you need to kind of know what you're getting. And we do have 22 to 1. Go Just Do It. 22 to 1 is, for me, is absolutely grand each way, and you're getting 11 to 2 to finish in the first 2. This is a horse by Kingman who looks very, very promising. And as much as he was unplaced in a maiden, that only tells a half of a misleading story in relation to his run here the last day. And as Sam says, it's a pretty thin renewal of the race.
327 Curragh on Saturday. Go Just Do It. 22 to 1 each way for 25 each way for Johnny's charity bet. You know what to do, folks. Go Just Do It. Johnny, thanks so much, man. And enjoy the rest of Killarney. And safe home, yeah?
Thank you.
And Sam Norris, thanks, man.
Thanks very much, guys.
Sam Norris there from William Hill and Johnny Ward on episode 90 of the Racing Pod, folks. Reminder that the full Off the Ball Racing Pod is now free wherever you get your pods. We're back next week and we look forward to having your company then. Enjoy the racing.
The Racing Pod
on Off the Ball
with William Hill. Who you got? 18 plus. See gamblingcare.ie.